Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up today, 3 chances to win fantabulous prizes. Once at 4 o'clock for our Take the Trip or Keep the Cash. At 4:45 for our Real Deal giveaway as Kevin and I review the latest Superman movie. And again at 5:45 during our Good News giveaway. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
Who is actually running the country the last 4 years? This is not going away, and it's insane to me that this has dropped off so many people's radar. There was a bombshell report in the New York Times yesterday. And to know how biased the New York Times is, let me give you the headline of this report for a second. The headline of this report is Biden says he made the clemency decisions that were recorded with the autopen. Excerpt, little subtitle. Donald J. Trump and his allies have begun investigations to support their claims that Joseph R. Biden Jr. was incapacitated and his staff conspired to take presidential actions in his name. So you're going to say, Ari, this is just the New York Times spinning for Joe Biden. How is this a bombshell report? So basically, they found Joe Biden lying on a beach somewhere, wanted his side of the story, interviewed him, and now they're going to spin it for him? Yeah, you're right. But there's a couple of fascinating paragraphs in this talk about burying the lead. Let's go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 paragraphs in this Megillah that I'm not even a third of the way through. So if you're going to push back on reporting that you use the autopen, at some point you should push back on reporting that you use the autopen, not confirm it, right? Just making sure. That would make sense. So they spend the first 14 paragraphs doing that. And Joe Biden saying, I was fully mentally capable. Yeah, why are you doing this interview by phone? So somebody can put the answers right there in front of you and you can read them? Well, did he go off script for this one? Here we go. Paragraph 15. At the end of his term, Mr. Biden reduced the sentences of nearly 4,000 federal convicts and preemptively pardoned politically prominent people he considered potential targets of Mr. Trump for criminal investigations. Mr. Biden said in Thursday's interview that he and his staff use of an autopen for the warrants because he had granted clemency to so many people. The autopen was used. Hang on.
True story.
Hang on. I'll make sure I got this right. You guys just admitted that Joe Biden did not sign the warrants for over 4,000 people? Look, I understand the autopen for the Christmas cards. Believe me, I do. But you worried the old man's hand can't? You worried he's going to get a little bit of writer's cramp? Do a few every day. Spread it out over time. But what you're telling me is that the autopen was used for all this? What else was the autopen used for? That set extended to preemptive pardons to many people Mr. Trump perceived as enemies, including General Mark Milley, Dr. Anthony Fauci, and members and staff of the House committee that investigated the Capitol riot. Whoa! Wait a minute. You're telling me the autopen was used for every single clemency, commutation, and pardon, with the exception of Hunter Biden's, because Joe Biden was very proud in saying he did that one. In fact, the article goes on to discuss that staff was doing this without even running it past Joe Biden. So, Mr. Biden did not individually approve each name for the categorical pardons applied to large numbers of people he and his aides confirmed. Rather, after extensive discussion of possible criteria, he signed off on the standards he wanted to be used to determine which convicts would qualify for a reduction in sentence. So he didn't even know who these people were. It goes on to add that the staff just added people and didn't even bother running it by Joe Biden.
True story.
So specific names were added by the Bureau of Prisons, because the Bureau of Prisons gets to go, hey, let's just let these guys out and let those guys out and no problem whatsoever. Are these even legally binding anymore? Internal White House emails reviewed by the Times detail how Biden's decisions were discussed and approved in senior staff meetings, with key aides like Chief of Staff Jeffrey Zients and White House counsel Ed Siskel relaying Biden's choices to assistants who documented them. Those summaries were then reviewed and circulated before they authorized the use of autopen for each clemency warrant. Wait a minute. Let's do this again. So Biden allegedly had meetings with the chief of staff and the White House counsel. Then the chief of staff and the White House counsel went and met with the staff and said, here's what the old man said. Here's who we're going to pardon. How do you know any of that is even true?
True story.
Exactly. Joe Biden's now claiming he made every single decision. He's calling Trump and crew liars. Dude, you just confirmed everything that they've said so far. Every single thing. Republicans led by House Oversight Chair James Comer and Senator Ron Johnson are investigating whether Biden's aides used the autopen without his direct involvement. Hey, case closed, guys. The old senile fart just admitted it. Just admitted it to the New York Times. And they tried to bury it 15 paragraphs down. I'm glad a lot of people on the right read the New York Times and happen to pick up on this, because it was everywhere last night. This is a massive, massive scandal. And you're going to say, so what? A few crackheads got out of jail. So what? A few drug dealers got out of jail. Big deal. No, my friends. What else did he use the auto pen for? What else did his staff use the auto pen for? What other decisions were not made by Joe Biden, but were made with his staff saying, well, I believe in, here's the framework. Here, let me give you an example, okay? Here's an example. Let's say Joe Biden said to his staff, oh, you know what? We got to support Ukraine. We got to support Ukraine no matter what. So let's support Ukraine. Okay. Is that your parameter for the war? Because that would explain why there's really been no plan whatsoever, and it just seems willy-nilly about how we're supporting Ukraine. Or how about this one? Yeah, I like Israel. I like them Jews. Let's support Israel, but don't piss off anybody in Michigan, or anybody in Hamas, or anybody in Lebanon, or anybody in Iran. I really want to make that Iran deal. So be nice to them. That would explain his Middle East policy, wouldn't it? That's criteria he laid out. Was he involved in any actual decision? How about this one? Jill Biden walks into the Oval Office. You know, sweetie, I really don't like that they're criticizing my teacher friends. Would you mind if I use the Department of Justice to target them as domestic terrorists? Sure, Jill, sure. Who was running the actual country? Was it Joe Biden? Was it Jill Biden? Was it Hunter Biden? Was the White House chief of staff? Was it nameless, faceless aides who we don't even know who they are? Who was actually running the show over there? The implications of this are horrifying. And if a Republican had done this, oh, you'd better bet they'd be coming down on him or her like a ton of bricks right now, and rightfully so. What do we know about Donald Trump? Donald Trump makes every single decision. He does. What do we know about him? He loves documents. He signs every document, and he makes a big deal about signing every document, and he makes a big deal about his signature. Is there ever a question that Donald Trump is in charge, whether you like Donald Trump or dislike Donald Trump? Is there even a question that he's in charge? No, there's not. But Joe Biden, I still don't know who's in charge. And the fact that the majority of Americans don't even care about this, aren't even paying attention to this, is insane. Do you remember last week? Joe Biden's doctor took the fifth on every question posed to him. Every single question posed to him. Do you know that every single person from that administration is now lawyering up because they know they're going to be hauled in front of this committee? And I go back to my original argument. not a single person who was part of that administration should ever be allowed anywhere near politics again. And I say this specifically regarding the cabinet members, because the cabinet has the power of the 25th Amendment. And if they knew there was a problem, it is their constitutional responsibility to do something about it, and they didn't. Ironically, to their own detriment. If they had said, the old man is gone, which a lot of us predicted was what was going to happen. Hey, here's Kamala Harris. You remember the joke we made years ago that the most dangerous job in the White House was Joe Biden's food taster because Kamala Harris was going to poison his food so she could be president? If they had made her the first female black president, she might have actually had a better chance of getting reelected. Of getting elected president. I actually truly believe that. It doesn't mean she would have won, but I think she would have had a better chance. The fact that nobody in the media seems to care about this, the fact that the New York Times didn't even notice the bombshell reporting they had or intentionally buried it, is horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. And if this was Donald Trump, they'd be saying, you need to invoke the 25th Amendment. You need to do this. It's crazy to me how few people are still paying attention to something like this, and the Democrats are going to call it a witch hunt. It's not, by the admission of the New York Times. You had aides running the administration, and yet people weren't paying attention to this? Absolutely crazy. We go to the Warrior Injury Law text line. Beth in Shelton says, hey, Ari, your Biden is your best imitation yet. I don't know about that, but I appreciate the compliment. Maybe it's because my voice is still a little scratchy from last week. Maybe that's helping out a little bit. But yeah, true story. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's what's helping it out. This one from Bruce. Ari, remember back when they used to accuse Donald Trump of hating the police? Biden commutes the sentences, releases Leonard Peltier, a guy who murdered 2 FBI agents, while they were seeking him for murder of a police officer, among other crimes. This is so the machinations of the activist clowns that surround Biden. I just wish a few of them had done it for the money so there'd be a trail to follow back to their conviction for usurping power that was not theirs. Bruce always makes good points like that. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's insane to me. Let me know what you think. Do you think we're ever going to get to the bottom of this? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from our friend Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's up, man?
What's up? There's a couple of thoughts. I'm going to try to be quick. But number one, I really think it's time to put the Biden administration in the rearview mirror. I have a high opinion of the guy, but I think we should talk about another story in the New York Times, and it's a pretty big story. And it's why even got me to try a trial subscription to a New York Times instead of the Seattle Times, because they gave full coverage to Bibi Netanyahu's strategic genius in making sure that not just was Hamas dealt with after October 7, but also Iran. And how Netanyahu dealt with all the political maneuvering he had to do.
So, you know what? It is nice that the New York Times finally wrote something nice about Israel. But I'll tell you this, Joe. Here's where my thing comes from, all right? If Joe Biden's administration can do this, other administrations can do this. And for all we know, and you know I love President Trump, and you know I love his administration, for all we know, something like this could be happening right now. We know likely it's not. But at the same time, if this was happening during a Republican administration, everybody would be going bonkers crazy. Do you remember when Trump was president the first time? And they said he's unbalanced. We need to invoke the 25th Amendment. You literally had a guy who was checked out to lunch that his staff was running the show, and yet they're not investigating it. This is worse than Watergate. And my issue with this, Joe, this isn't about Joe Biden. For me, it's not about Joe Biden. For me, it's about anybody who holds that office in the future. I want to know whether I voted for them or not, but at least that they were voted and elected legitimately, and they are actually the one making the decisions, because the buck stops there. It doesn't seem like that was the case.
Yes, I agree. I generally agree with you. Part of the problem is what are the political, and I've been in politics for way too long. There's a tension between the political staff becoming the story or the politician, but at the end of the day, the staff have to realize that they're part of the story and the implementation too, and they have to accept some of the spotlight or do something else, because I am an open government guy. You know this.
Yeah.
And I love process stories, whether it's about Baba Netanyahu or preferably closer to home, where we don't get that very much anymore. And Grant, I'm grateful for a lot of what President Biden and his team have done, but I just really really take President Biden at his word. He made decisions about those clemencies, because if he didn't, oh boy.
Well, here's the thing, Joe, which word are you taking him at? And with this, I got to go. Which word are you taking him at? The one where he said all his staff was doing good, or the one where he said he weighed in on every decision? Because his own emails, his own conversation, but the problem is he said both. He literally said both when he outlined how they did it. When the emails outlined how he did it, that's what he didn't weigh in on every decision. They created this framework, and he didn't. So if he didn't weigh in on every decision, he's not telling the truth. Joe, appreciate the conversation as always. Wow. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss as the show continues, including a grandma was driving through Seattle over the weekend with her grandkids and got shot in the face. We'll tell you all about this insanity when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I don't know how I got added to this list, but I have been one of the people always polled in every single survey about Seattle. And I find it very, very entertaining. So I want to know how you would answer these questions in the latest survey. Here's question A. Overall, would you say that things in Seattle are headed in the right direction? Or things are pretty seriously off on the wrong track? And it says right direction, wrong track, not sure. Those are your options. How would you answer that? Text me, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Do you think Seattle is on the right track, wrong track, or not sure? Okay. Question 2. This was a much longer survey, but I'm about to tell you who it was about. This is, how would you rate the job being done by Bruce Harrell as mayor of Seattle? Excellent, good, just fair, or poor, or no opinion? Text me, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I will tell you how I filled this out while I'm waiting for your responses. I said wrong track, and I said poor. Now, I didn't say that because I despise Bruce Harrell. I said that because I look around at the city, and I see more homeless people growing by the day, getting worse, more crime on our streets, more problems, and it's the summer. This is usually when they clean things up for cruise season. This is usually when they clean things up for election cycle. But Bruce Harrell and the Seattle City Council are so afraid of the left, they don't want a whole bunch of homeless sweeps right now because they know the left will use it to elect the lefties. What was this poll about? This poll was about, whichever company sent this, is trying to craft their narrative about which narratives, which talking points, which 10-word answers resonate the best with you so they can use it in the discussion. So they tried out, hey, does it help that Bruce Harrell is going to be taxing big businesses? And I'm like, no. How about no? Then it was, well, would you say that you can blame the left for this? It was clearly trying, somebody from Bruce Harrell's campaign was trying to figure out new messaging, and somehow I'm on the list. Now, over on the text line, it says, wrong track, poor, wrong track, poor, 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 wrong track, poor. So it's just, yes, exactly. Here's one from the 206. I lease space in Soto. New tenant as of July 4th already had a couple cars stolen by RV people. Yes, that is how Seattle is going right now. In fact, it's so much worse than that. You can't tell me things are getting better when something like this happens. I acknowledge that every city has crime. Every single city has crime. It's a fact of life. But they're not this blatant. According to Como News, a Tacoma grandmother is recovering after being shot in the face with a pellet gun while driving her family home from Pike Place Market on Saturday. Edith Oppenheimer was driving her daughter and 2 young granddaughters near South Jackson Street and 4th Avenue in Pioneer Square around 5 p.m., broad daylight, by the way, when she was struck. Initially, she was unsure of what hit her. She says, I was in shock. I didn't know what was going on. I just knew it hurt, and it wouldn't stop bleeding. It was still bleeding, she told Como News. First, police suspected it might have been a rock. She recalled, who gets shot? Who thinks about getting shot? It's not in my world, so I said, I don't know, maybe a rock hit me. It felt like a ball hit me. I didn't know. After driving home to Tacoma, she went to the hospital. Doctors discovered a pellet lodged in her cheek. A pellet from a pellet gun was fired at her. It's crazy. Her granddaughter was sitting behind her. If it had been hit her, if it hit her in the eye, it could have killed her. She could have crashed the car. Many other things could have happened. What do you think could happen? Shall we speculate for a minute on what would have happened around here? Let's speculate for a second. Somebody in Pioneer Square was having fun and decided, hey, let's start firing at vehicles as they go by. Yeah, it's not rock throwing season on I-90 yet, so let's start firing the pellet gun. Is anybody surprised by a story like this? Every time the politicians say, oh, things are going great, things are on the right track, oh, look, crime's down. You get a story like some psychopath drug addict pours boiling coffee on a 4-year-old toddler, or a grandmother gets shot in the face. This is the kind of stuff where, unfortunately, it's just another day in Seattle. This is the kind of stuff we're seeing all the time. And I only see more encampments. You know, there's this picture of Bob Ferguson and Jay Inslee on the brand new ferry on Thursday. and they're all excited about the new hybrid electric ferry that's a year late and millions of dollars over budget. But, at least we got the ferry, right? We may have to scrap the whole electric program because it's over budget, and we're building ferries in Florida. But, hey, we got the ferry. The two of them are standing there in a PR shot, and Bob is taking a selfie of him and Inslee with Seattle in the background. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, it really is like the action movies where the main characters are walking away with something they destroyed on fire in the background. That's literally what you're seeing. The tone deafness of, well, we've got massive overdose rates and massive crime rates and a defunded police department and hundreds of police officers left the force in Seattle, and nothing's really gotten better. But hey, we got an electric ferry out of the deal. Woo! Woo-hoo! It's not just the narrative here that's insane. California has the exact same issue. Los Angeles has the exact same issue. I saw this headline from the Los Angeles Times, and then I read the article and realized the article was just as bad as I thought it was going to be. Tell me if this sounds familiar. Homelessness wasn't always an issue in L.A. It accumulated through decades of policies that chipped away at affordable housing, replaced good jobs with low-wage work, and left vulnerable people with nowhere to land when they fell. Not a single mention of drugs, not a single mention of mental health, no mention of lousy zoning laws or illegal immigration, which means they aren't actually serious about solving this. They are still with the BS narrative that, rich people just fired everybody and cut their wages, and that's why we have the problem on the streets. It just ain't true. It just ain't true. No discussion of the fentanyl crisis, no discussion how that's tied to the border, no discussion about letting gangs in everywhere, no discussion about the mental health crisis, no discussion about the drugs making people insane and creating your crime problems. Here's another one from the Los Angeles Times. This was an op-ed. There's no solution to homelessness that doesn't involve denting property values. So what they're saying is, yeah, you people got to suck it up and deal with our bad policies. By the way, they just said the quiet part out loud. This is the Democrats' plan, literally the plot from RoboCop. Let's devalue things, buy them up, and then we own them. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what we're talking about here. This is exactly what they've done, except the idiots in Seattle and King County and Washington State are so dumb because what do they keep doing? They keep spending triple the amount because, hey, it's just taxpayer money. Who cares? But that's what they're doing. You want to know why things are so bad here? Literally by design. Literally by design. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from our friend Bob in Seattle. Bob, it's been a long time. How you doing?
Hey, Ari, how you doing? Love you, but you're giving the two numbskulls in Olympia far too much credit. Ferguson and Inslee are working to destroy the state, but the people in Seattle and the administrators in Seattle have had a heck of a big part in destroying the once great city that I worked in. Okay, I had to remind a mother of a 2-year-old one time when she was down in we affectionately call it I can't say it on the air. One of the parks.
Smart move.
One of the parks in Seattle. That hey, you see those homeless people over there? What do you think they do on that grass in the middle of the night?
Yeah, exactly.
She went and gave her kid a bath with one of those alcohol wipes. But,
yeah. I agree with you, Bob. I'm not taking away Harold's responsibility. I'm not taking away the city council's responsibility. And don't forget, Harold was on the city council and was city council president before he was mayor, which is why I opened the segment talking about Harold. You're 100% right. There's failure at every level, but this is what you get with complete Democrat control. Complete Democrat control at every single level. In fact, Bob, I'm going to do something different this year. For my voters guide, I put one out every single year and I say, here are my endorsements. I'm doing it differently.
Yeah.
Here's how we're going to do it instead. Instead, it's going to be, here are my actual endorsements, which is going to be like 2 people I actually recommend. And then here's the better of 2 terrible options. You decide if you want to vote for them because all these people suck.
No kidding.
Because there are so few good people running because all the good people have left. Bob, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, is Trump about to force NATO to end the war with Russia and Ukraine? It looks like he's got a pretty good plan. We'll tell you what it is when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. We never talk about the war in Ukraine anymore. And a lot of people go, good, I'm tired of the war in Ukraine. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to be paying for it anymore. But I think one of the reasons we're not talking about it anymore is because President Trump has done almost everything he said he was going to do. He said he was going to end the war within the first 24 hours of being president. I think that was nice to shoot for the moon because if you miss, you hit the stars. But that wasn't going to happen because he was counting on old Vladimir Putin, the guy who wasn't in the middle of a war, the guy who could talk to. Now Putin has to save face. Now Putin needs an off-ramp. And everything President Trump has tried to do has actually made Zelensky do everything we want him to do and tried to send a signal to Putin, dude, I'm giving you every chance in the world to end this, and yet you haven't done it. So what happens today is President Trump promises a big weapons package to NATO. He's got the Secretary General of NATO in the Oval Office. They have a great meeting. I don't think anybody called anybody daddy today, but that's okay. We're fine with that. And it's a great meeting. And Europe is picking up their part of the tab when it comes to all this. So let's go back in time and discuss the Ukraine thing. I had a great conversation with a gentleman at the Bremerton Air Show yesterday about Ukraine who's very passionate about Ukraine. And a lot of you are saying, oh, I just can't stand it. This whole thing is Bill Clinton's fault. Can we all recognize that? This whole thing is Bill Clinton's fault. Bill Clinton, in the 1990s, nuclear disarmament, said to Ukraine, if you give up your nuclear weapons, we got your back. We are in this mess because of Bill Clinton. Because they said, yeah, we'd rather them not have nuclear weapons. And look what you get. Now, if they can't defend themselves, it's on us because Bill Clinton made that promise. Now, the problem is a lot of people are going to say, well, should we have kept the promise? Okay, we can have that discussion. That's a fine discussion to have. But then what happens? Joe Biden pulls out of Afghanistan, and immediately Putin gets a signal, well, I can do this whenever. I can do this right now because Joe Biden's not going to do anything, because America's not going to do anything, and that's exactly what happened. But Joe Biden funded Ukraine enough to the point of mediocrity, not actually to win, just to kind of defend themselves and hold the line. President Trump has said, we're going to fund you, and we're going to fund you to win because we want this thing to be over. So basically what he's doing is pointing a giant gun at Putin and saying, I'm going to give them everything they need to finish the job because I gave you chance after chance after chance after chance, and we have now seen that you're a paper tiger. And thousands of people are dying for no reason whatsoever, and we don't want to keep funding this war. So rather than keep funding this war, we're going to give them everything they need to win. Then we're going to hit you with 100% sanctions. And you're not going to be a gas station with nuclear weapons anymore because anybody who does business with you is going to get sanctioned. That's what some sanctions do. This is the only thing we can do at this point. Question is, do you think it's too little too late? The other question is, do you think it'll actually work? Let's remember, this isn't President Trump's war. He's making the best of a bad situation.
One of the reasons that you're here today is to hear that we are very unhappy, I am, with Russia. But we'll discuss that maybe a different day. But we're very, very unhappy with them, and we're going to be doing very severe tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. Tariffs at about 100%. You'd call them secondary tariffs. You know what that means. But today we're going to talk about something else. And as you know, we've spent $350 billion approximately on this war with Russia and Ukraine. And would like to see it end. It wasn't my war, it was Biden's war. It's not my war, I'm trying to get you out of it. And we want to see it end. And I'm disappointed in President Putin because I thought we would have had a deal 2 months ago, but it doesn't seem to get there. So based on that, we're going to be doing secondary tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. It's very simple. And they'll be at 100%. And that's the way it is. It can be more simple.
He's 100% right, and everything he said is 100% correct. Every single thing. Tried to do the deal, didn't work out. Now you better do the deal or else. Well, the Secretary General of NATO is sitting right next to him.
This is really big. You called me on Thursday that you have taken a decision. And the decision is that you want Ukraine what it needs to have to maintain, to be able to defend itself against Russia, but you do want Europeans to pay for it, which is totally logical. And this is building on the tremendous success of the NATO summit. The 5%, but also the decision to keep Ukraine strong and the decision to increase our defense industrial production. So based on that, that was Europe stepping up. This is again Europeans stepping up. So I've been in contact with many countries. I can tell you that at this moment, Germany massively, but also Finland and Denmark and Sweden and Norway, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Canada, they all want to be part of this. And this is only the first wave. There will be more.
He's right. So everything is going the way the U.S. could be hoping for, except that the war is not over yet. So President Trump is also thrilled by this because Europe is finally stepping up. It's not just us.
Just they're paying for everything. We're not paying anymore. We have an ocean separating us. I said we have a problem. We make the best stuff, but we can't keep doing this. And Biden should have done this years ago. He should have done it from the beginning, but he didn't. He didn't know he was there.
Exactly. So we're making the best of a bad situation. The question is, do you think this is going to solve things, or do you think this is going to motivate Putin to get worse? Because here's the thing. Putin's got nothing but time on his hands. He controls the elections in his country. He's not going anywhere. He can just wait out Trump. And I think that's his plan, thinking somebody else will be easier to deal with. He's playing the long game of rebuilding the Soviet Union and thinks Ukraine is the first stop. And he's not going to stop until he can rebuild the Soviet Union. Does this mean I want us going to war with Russia? Of course not. But something that got lost when Zelensky was being a schmuck, something that got lost in that whole mess was Putin is still the bad guy in all this. Still absolutely the bad guy who started this war for no reason whatsoever other than he wants to restart the Soviet Union. Do you think Trump's plan is going to work? Do you think this is going to solve anything? Give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Robin Lakewood says over on the Warrior Injury Law text line, remember in the first term when the EU laughed at Trump wanting to build up NATO? Merkel laughed him out of the room. Yeah, that didn't work out so well for them. That's a great historical point, Rob. Very, very good one. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss. Apparently, Elmo went to Harvard or is trying to be part of the UN or something because the official Elmo Twitter account went on a whole crazy anti-Semitic, anti-Trump rant over the weekend. Kind of funny are the memes that came out of it. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. You know Elmo, the little red monster puppet from Sesame Street. Yeah, that Elmo, the one who's made billions of dollars for the Children's Television Workshop, for Sesame Street, for PBS, for NPR, for all those guys. Somebody hacked his Twitter account yesterday, or at least that's what they're telling us. And Elmo went on an anti-Semitic, anti-Trump tirade. I can't read most of it out loud, but basically he called on all Jews to be killed and blank the Jews, and Donald Trump is Netanyahu's puppet because he is in the Epstein files. Jews control the world and need to be exterminated. You know, I know this wasn't Elmo because Elmo would have said it all backwards. He talks like Yoda. And he always talks in first person. So clearly this wasn't Elmo. Now, as terrible as this was, it was up for a pretty long time. I got home yesterday from the Bremerton Air Show around, 4 or 5 o'clock. And I'm home from the air show, and my wife and I are sitting around, and she goes, Ari, you got to see what's happening on Twitter right now. She says, you got to look at Elmo's Twitter account. I said, what? What do you mean Elmo's Twitter account? And all this was going on. We were watching it happen in real time. So I think Sesame Street figured out within 30 minutes or so what was up, and then shut down the account and then started deleting the tweets. But what they didn't realize was all the replies. Elmo wasn't just tweeting out this stuff. Elmo was also replying to other people's tweets with, shall we just say, words that will get me canceled. I don't even know if they're one of the 7 deadly words, but I know for sure Kramer from Seinfeld found out you can't say that word. Lots of other people found out you can't say those words. Elmo, that's pretty bad. Pretty bad, the stuff that Elmo was saying. Now, as awful as this is, the memes were awesome. Absolutely awesome. You've got Elmo in an SS outfit. I know you're going, how is this funny, Ari? Well, we find it funny. So you've got Elmo in the SS outfit like the Nazi at the beginning of Inglourious Bastards saying, you're hiding Jews under Sesame Street, aren't you? Right? Like those kind of memes were great. They went on for days, absolute days. But what's crazy to me is that these are becoming views sort of the right, this kind of stuff. Yes, so because the Trump administration won't release the Epstein files or says there's nothing to the Epstein files or whatever the case may be, it must be the Jews. This is the kind of stuff we're hearing out of Turning Point USA, not them specifically, but out of Tucker Carlson and other people who spoke there this weekend. Beyond crazy. We'll discuss that later in the show. So I reach out to Sesame Street and I say, hey, what's going on here? And they got back to me this morning and they said Elmo's X account was compromised by an unknown hacker who posted disgusting messages, including anti-Semitic and racist posts. We are working to restore full control of the account. One teensy tiny little problem. This was 12 hours after it happened. So what do you still not have the account for? So for example, I know that a couple of times I've lost my account and now I have like quadruple checks on the thing. So I know that when I've been locked out of my account before or something like that, once you get it back, and you get your controls restored and you can go delete everything. Elmo hasn't posted in a while. Are they going to post an apology or anything else? Now, I did find this funny because now that everybody went down the Elmo rabbit hole, we found this one yesterday. Where did Elmo get all these ideas from, you might say? This is literally an article on the Harvard website. I kid you not, this is on the Harvard website. Elmo goes to Harvard. And this is from the article. That love that Elmo shares extends way beyond Sesame Street, which was evident on Elmo's recent trip to Jordan to visit with Syrian refugees. Whoa! Where did Elmo get all the anti-Semitism from? It always comes back to Harvard every single time. Now, locally, there was an interesting take on this. Fox 13 covered this story, and they wrote, was Elmo hacked? The Sesame Street Star published and deleted a post on X challenging President Donald Trump to release the files with a not suitable for work message. And I said, interesting headline, leaving out all the anti-Semitism and everything else that he said. Interesting. I wonder if it's in the article itself, because sometimes when an article's been published 50,000 times, you need a new headline to get attention. Not one mention of the anti-Semitism until they were called out for it, and it was updated later. Not one mention of the anti-black sentiment or anything else like that until it was, and I still don't think it's been updated with any of that. They left all that out. how the mighty have fallen. Fox 13 around here is just ain't the same as it used to be. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss as the show continues, including your chance to take the trip or keep the cash during our latest giveaway, plus so much more. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour at 4:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. Kevin and I review the latest Superman movie. But before we get to any of that, my friends, you work hard, you need a giveaway. Perhaps some financial relief. You're thinking, hey, it's Monday and I was really enjoying that weekend so much. You know, it'd be really, really nice to take a trip. Well, we've got you covered, my friends, with KVI's Take the Trip or Keep the Cash, sponsored by our friends over at Budget Tank Removals. This week, you can get away to Maui with surf, sun, and sand, or have a chance at $3,000 in cold, hard cash. All you have to do is enter the keyword I give you. At the number I give you, you're going to text it to the number I give you. You're not going to do anything else with it. Just text it to the number I give you, and we'll get you in the daily drawing to get a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. And you could win a trip or keep the cash with KVI. Now, I'm going to give you the keyword. You do not call us with the keyword. You just text us the keyword. Do not send it over to my social media. Just text the keyword. Not your name, not your phone number, not your address, nothing else. Just the keyword and only one time. Text it over to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And today's keyword is cash, as in you could win cash with KVI. That's C-A-S-H, as in Johnny Cash, as in cold hard cash, not as in Cash Patel, because that's with a K. C-A-S-H. Text the word cash to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. You have until 5 p.m. to enter. Your next chance at winning comes tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. during the morning ride with Zach and Phil. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout delivery order, and so much more. Good luck, my friends. You know who else found a ton of cash when they raided that farm, which wasn't growing strawberries in California? That was the craziest one. You know what that's like? The mafia in The Godfather saying, we were in the olive oil business. Uh-huh. And Tony Soprano was in the garbage business, right? Right? Yeah, we're growing strawberries. Those don't look like strawberry plants to me. You know, I know there's no strawberries on those 5-leafed plants I see in those grow houses. So, Department of Homeland Security, according to Bill Malugin from Fox News, reports the number of illegal aliens arrested in the California cannabis farm raids on Thursday is now up to 361. Isn't it amazing how quickly this story disappeared from the headlines? The left stopped saying, oh, the children. You mean the illegal immigrant juveniles who are being used to illegally harvest the crops of drug dealers? Those guys? Yeah. And then they said, oh, a guy died during the raid. You mean the drug dealer who tried to escape by climbing up on the roof and fell off the roof? Oh, boo flippin' who for that guy. Yeah, I love that they tried to get sympathy for all this. Well, would you like to know who some of the people they found on the farm was? The Strawberry Farm. Previously deported Mexican alien convicted of kidnapping, attempted rape, and attempted child molestation. You mean the people holding the kids illegally who are illegal aliens? Was previously convicted of kidnapping, attempted rape, and attempted child molestation? A Mexican illegal alien convicted of rape and DUI. A Salvadoran alien convicted of DUI, hit and run with property damage. A Mexican alien convicted 3 times for burglary and a DUI. Department of Homeland Security says over 500 rioters attempted to interrupt the operation. 4 U.S. citizens have been arrested for assaulting or resisting federal agents. 14 illegal alien juveniles were found in the cannabis farms, including 9 unaccompanied minors. And now, all of a sudden, the story is disappearing more and more from the headlines. You know what else? Around here, we're having some good raids too, and they're not getting enough credit because the Fed's doing it, not the locals. So, this one here. Despite the best efforts of people like Bob Ferguson, Nick Brown, and crew, the DEA had a massive drug bust. According to Como News, a months-long federal, tribal, and local investigation led by the DEA resulted in 12 indictments against 13 people for trafficking fentanyl, methamphetamine, cocaine, and marijuana onto the Yakima Nation reservation. Wait, isn't it the left that's always telling us we have all these drug problems, that we should deal with them out on the reservations, that there's all these bad things happening on the reservations? Shouldn't you guys be applauding this? I didn't see Bob Ferguson talking about this. I didn't see Nick Brown talking about this. Shouldn't you guys be happy about this? The investigation, DEA Operation Overdrive, began in late 2024, ended in June 2025. It targeted violent individuals and armed drug traffickers in the Yakima Nation and in the Yakima Valley. Its goal was to stop drug distributors on and off the reservation. The operation stemmed from increasing drug-related activities such as federal overdoses, homicides, and opioid trafficking, according to David F. Ream, special agent in charge of the DEA Seattle Field Division. He says the fentanyl powder and pills we took off the streets could have killed about 250,000 people. That's enough to kill everybody living in Yakima County. How many times have we seen headlines like this? And yet, it seems like the left is still opposed to getting this stuff off our streets. You should be asking them why. You should be asking them what's wrong with drug enforcement, especially when you're trying to save the people of the Yakima Nation. I thought you guys cared about First Nations or indigenous species or whatever it was. Don't hear you saying anything about that. Oh, because it's a national program run by the feds. And even though they're working with local law enforcement agencies, you guys don't like law enforcement agencies, do you? Well, you got a whole bunch of people here who are also sound like they're illegal aliens who were convicted, or who were charged in the process. And they have a lot of charges on them. You know what is going to happen, though? What's going to happen is down the road, the drug overdose rate is going to go down here in Washington, and they're going to take a victory lap. See, all our programs are working. All our diversion programs, it's better than arresting people. And they're not going to acknowledge the fact that the feds have sealed the border. They're not going to acknowledge the fact that the feds have all these drug busts. They're not going to acknowledge the fact that local law enforcement is still doing their jobs despite the best efforts of people like Bruce Harrell, Bob Ferguson, and Nick Brown. They're not going to acknowledge any of that. They're just going to take the credit for it. Let me know if you agree with me. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Ted in Gig Harbor. Ted, what's up, man?
Hey, Ari. A lot of pot growers, they're not all that bright. Some years back, when it was still illegal, some guys tried to disguise their pot plants by taping cherry tomatoes to them.
Really? Is that so? I didn't see any strawberries in the pictures. You know what that reminds me of? My grandmother. Oh, sweet woman. God bless her soul. So my grandmother, before she passed away, would do this thing every time we would come over to her house. She wanted us to think she was good at gardening and that we could, pick things out of her garden. She would go and shove carrots in the ground. She would go and shove them in the ground and have us, she would buy them with the stalks on them and whatever, but she would shove them in the ground so we felt like we were gardening at her house, God bless her soul. But she would also take like cherry tomato plants that she bought at the store and whatever and just shove them in the ground for us to find. I mean, we caught on to it when we were a little bit older. I was never big into gardening, but that kind of reminds me of that. How about you?
Yeah, and in the case of the pot growers, it didn't work. They got busted.
Yeah, I would think they would. Here, I'll tell you another story, Ted, from my construction days. Remember after they made pot legal here in Washington? I was getting all these calls from these mom and pop landlords. And they said, Ari, we need you to undo what our previous tenants did, but we don't want to discuss it on the phone. Can you come take a look at it? Now, after a while, I knew exactly what they were saying, and I would say it on the phone, and I go, guys, if you say you found this stuff in the basement, you're not getting arrested, okay? If Echelon is listening or the FBI is listening, don't worry, you're not getting – yeah, but we'd feel more comfortable if you came and looked at it. Every single time, without fail, what I would find is somebody had converted the entire basement to a grow house, and they just abandoned it. So now you have this landlord that's stuck dealing with plumbing – dealing with electrical, dealing with getting rid of all this equipment, because they just up and disappeared in the middle of the night because it wasn't worth them to have the whole production facility anymore. Oh, my gosh. I remember this was like fall 1976, okay? My buddies and I are driving we're at Ohio State. We're driving to the grocery store. We're driving the back alley.
There's cop cars in the parking lot of this apartment building two doors down from us. There's guys coming out of the building with their hands behind their backs and stuff. Oh, boy, they got busted.
Yeah. I remember my first engagement with this when I was a kid was actually I was coming home from synagogue one day, and there's SWAT teams everywhere. I'm like, I don't know, 11 or something. And my neighborhood I grew up in, nice neighborhood, right near AOC's house, not the ghetto, okay? Really gorgeous neighborhood, lovely people, all right? Lots of white people around. All right. So just giving you the picture, the picket fences and all that stuff. So what happens? I'm coming home from synagogue, and this house we pass by all the time. The entire SWAT team is encircling the thing, and the garages were filled with white bags, probably cocaine, but filled. Floor to ceiling of cocaine. It was the 80s. Cocaine's the drug of choice.
Oh, my
Bricks
goodness.
of cocaine. You could see them everywhere. This is in Scarsdale, New York. That's right, my friends. Scarsdale, New York. Good stuff, Ted.
Oh, my
Appreciate
gosh.
the call. Appreciate the discussion. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show. You give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Now, with all this insanity that they're finding everywhere, I got this text from Forrest over on the Warrior Injury Law text line. Ari, news stories about the pot farm enforcement in action, involving ICE have used the words minors, children, underage, etc., with no specific ages stated. A minor or underage worker on a pot farm could be 20 years old. Please let us know the actual ages of these child laborers. So the ages I have seen are around the 14 age, like the 12 to 14 age. I've seen some that were older. I've seen some that were a little younger. I haven't seen like 5-year-olds working on the farm, but I have seen people in that 14-year range. That seems to be the one they're talking about. But let's remember that the Democrats don't think any of this is a problem. They want to keep all the illegal aliens, no matter how big of a threat they are, in the country. Here's one for you. According to Fox News, police arrested a man who allegedly tried to carry on almost $3 million worth of drugs in his suitcase in Atlanta. Vance Ray Randolph was arrested on June 28th at Atlanta International Airport after allegedly trying to take drugs to Brazil, according to a Facebook post by the Atlanta Police Department. According to officials, he tried to travel with THC extracted products and marijuana. Law enforcement officers said they seized 12.35 pounds of THC wax, 34.39 pounds of hashish, 4.6 pounds of marijuana, and 1.21 pounds of pasty marijuana. Dude, do you not know who's running the TSA and all these agencies now? It's going to be pretty easy to find this stuff, okay? They're actually looking for stuff now. But the crazy thing to me is that people are still going to try. The other crazy thing to me is that people say pot isn't harmful. I mean, look, the amount of THC, the way that stuff has been dialed up to be addictive and to be more potent, yeah, different discussion, but we'll save that one for another time. But if we're having drug issues on the airplanes and we're stopping drug addicts, drug dealers, all that kind of stuff, then perhaps we're stopping other people too. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrested 1,361 illegal immigrants in the Houston area in June, which included individuals previously convicted of hijacking an airplane, because that's never been an issue in this country before, homicide, sexual assault, and more. I sent a press release that the illegal immigrants arrived in the Houston area in June are either currently charged or have been convicted of a criminal offense. Of those arrested, 32 were previously convicted of child sex crimes, 9 for homicide-related offenses, 6 believed to be gang or drug cartel members. Think about this for a second. How we were looking the other way on so many of these cases when Joe Biden was in charge. One person arrested by ICE was convicted of hijacking an airplane heading to Key West, Florida from Cuba. This is insane. And these are the kind of people that were being released into the interior of the U.S. under Joe Biden. This is one of the reasons we have to worry about who's on the streets of this country. This morning, pro-Hamas activists gathered outside Palantir's Seattle offices in South Lake Union. Palantir is a big tech company. And they're mad, the same reason these guys protest Google or Microsoft or anything else, claiming they're participating in a genocide. Oh, wait, hang on. They're not just protesting that. Claiming they're working with ICE. Oh, wait, they're not just protesting that. Claiming they're not socialist enough. Oh, wait, they're not just oh, wait, it's every cause you can possibly imagine. So much so It feels a lot like these guys don't even know what they're even protesting. I mean, it feels a lot like PCU.
It's a whole new ball game on campus these days, and they call it PC.
PC?
Politically correct. And it's not just politics, it's everything. It's what you eat, it's what you wear, and it's what you say. And if you don't watch yourself, you can get in a buttload of trouble. For instance,
We have rights
see these girls?
Choose to
Yeah.
choose.
No, you don't. Those are women. You call them girls, and they'll pop your figs.
Save the whales!
Gays in the military now!
Free Nelson Mandela!
They freed him already.
Yeah, I don't even know what you guys are even protesting now. I'm so confused by all of this. But at the same time, I see a whole bunch of unemployed white people, and I see a whole bunch of retired white people at this protest. Where is the third world you guys claim to represent? Where are those people? Yeah, these are the people who are protesting. But at the same time, if the Seattle Police Department doesn't arrest these guys and hit them with every single charge you can imagine, it's going to be a very, very long summer of this insanity. And as we saw for the last 2 years, since October 7th, we do see people who are supporting Hamas in this mix. How many do you think are illegal aliens who have ties to terror? Because we're literally arresting them by the truckload all over the country. How many are here? How many are part of these rallies? And is the reason that you're only seeing the white, young, unemployed people and the white, retired people at these rallies these days is, one, because liberals are stupid, and two, because the people who used to come to these rallies are hiding out because they know they're here illegally and they don't want to keep pushing their luck. I'm concerned that if Seattle Police doesn't deal with this, it's going to be another very, very long summer here in the Pacific Northwest. A lot more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, Trump administration gets a big win from the Supreme Court of the United States with regards to what the Department of Education can do and what it means for your family. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. In a ruling that was not unexpected, today the Supreme Court cleared the way for the Department of Education to fire hundreds of employees, pushing forward President Trump's plans to dismantle the agency. The decision in McMahon versus State of New York was issued 6-3 along ideological lines, according to Fox News. The decision temporarily pauses an order by a lower court judge that had reinstated roughly 1,400 laid-off employees of the Education Department. In March, Education Secretary Linda McMahon laid off half the department's workforce as part of President Donald Trump's broader reduction in force efforts. So, for example, later that month, Trump announced an executive order that he planned to shutter the department altogether. There shouldn't be anybody arguing with this except for the teachers' unions. First of all, that money should be spent in the classrooms, not on the Department of Education. Anybody here not been to Washington, D.C.? Have you ever driven around the place and there's a department of this and a department of that and there's all these buildings? Well, we know a whole bunch of those people aren't even at work in person. A lot of those people haven't been back since COVID. And yet we're paying for these big, huge buildings to be operating. And not a single kid is taught in these departments. How much money are we wasting on the Department of Education that would be better spent in the classroom? And even the lefties shouldn't be yelling and screaming about this. You want to spend it on DEI or whatever nonsense you want in Washington? Guess what? You're going to get to. You guys are that desperate to keep the Department of Education? Supreme Court's order arose from 2 lawsuits, including one brought by 20 Democratic-led states that challenged the Education Department's layoffs and planned closure. The plaintiffs argued that the High Court that the Trump administration's actions have rendered the Education Department incapable of carrying out legally mandated work, such as reviewing certifications of higher education institutions and federal aid purposes. Can we back up a second? Where were you guys during the Biden administration to review departments of higher education or colleges, institutions of higher education for all their civil rights violations? You guys weren't doing the job you were supposed to be doing. And how many people do you really need in order to do that? How much of the nonsense were you guys cooking up in the Department of Education that was actually telling kids, oh, you're racist or you're bigoted or whatever else there was? How much money was being spent on waste? The judge announced in May, finding that the record abundantly reveals that the administration's true intention is to effectively dismantle the department without an authorizing statute. The Trump administration responded that the layoffs did not prove the department was being shuttered and the department is still carrying out its legally required functions. It is. Look at what they're doing to Harvard. Look what they're doing to Columbia. Mind you, they will need an act of Congress to shut the thing down. And we will need an act of Congress to do the DOJ rescissions. And I am still wondering why we haven't done the DOJ rescissions. We can all celebrate the big, beautiful bill as much as we want, but there is a significant amount of spending in that sucker. And there should be a lot more cuts. The DOJ rescissions are the easiest way to do this. We should be shutting all this down. Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who's one of the dissenting judges, shock, said when the executive publicly announces its intent to break the law and then execute that promise, it is the judiciary's duty to check that lawlessness, not expedite it. But we're not talking about closing the department yet. It'd be one thing if they boarded the place up and turned it into a spirit of Halloween. They haven't done that yet. They're firing a whole bunch of employees they don't need. So you do need an act of Congress to shut this thing down eventually. In the meantime, the government can fire and hire whoever it wants to do. That's the crux here. Think about the building on 4th Avenue South in Seattle, in SoDo. That big, beautiful building for Seattle Public Schools, where hundreds of people work and not a single kid is taught. You know who was getting a paycheck from that building for the past year and a half? Ian Golosh. The guy who hung posters of terrorists on his walls, the guy who said that men could get pregnant and failed kids who said otherwise, the one who said October 7th was justified, that guy was getting your paycheck from that place. How many teachers are sitting in rubber rooms in that place? You ever see that episode of Law & Order? Rubber rooms, that's what they call the places where they put suspended teachers, where they just have to show up for work all day and just sit there doing whatever they want all day, but not actually teaching anybody. They call them rubber rooms because you go insane doing that day after day after day after day. How many teachers should be fired? But the unions aren't letting them get fired. Think about it this way. Everybody on the left says all the time, oh, well, there's all these bad cops. Okay, so let's try that with the teachers' unions. You think there's no bad teachers? Every profession has people you don't want around anymore. It just seems like there's more bad teachers than good teachers these days, especially when we saw what we saw out of the teachers' unions last week at their big conference in Portland, where they want to push all the insanity, where they want to talk about brainwashing the kids and politicizing the kids. That's not teaching them. We should be shutting down these departments. And when I looked up how much money we're spending on the John Sanford Center, which is on 4th Avenue South in Seattle, which is the headquarters of Seattle Public Schools, millions of dollars. So when they talk about how they may have to close Seattle Public Schools, may have to close specific schools, how they may have to fire teachers, or how they may have to reduce hours, et cetera, how come you guys don't start by actually looking at what's going on right there in the headquarters of the schools? You know how bad it can get? Listen to this report from Como News about the city of Edmonds.
The sun is shining, the kids are smiling, and downtown Edmonds seems thriving.
It is, and thankfully it is.
Yet Mayor Mike Rosen says the grass is also growing. Bathrooms are closing, and the city might soon be selling. Can you see a scenario where you have to sell City Hall?
It's interesting you pick City Hall because actually I'd like to sell City Hall.
You see, the mayor and council say they've had the lowest property taxes of cities in Snohomish County for years, and the city faces $40 million in deferred maintenance and more just to stay solvent.
We are in a financial crisis, a significant one.
Vivian Olson has been on the council for 5.5 years. Who screwed this up?
We never took care of the backlog. So I think that coupled with inflation and rising costs of everything.
They're now pitching lifting the levy lid to allow for $14 million in annual property taxes. Or say the city is likely going to have to sell public land, the historic Francis Anderson Center, cut police, parks, people, programs too. And that may be a big ask in a city of 42,000 residents, roughly a quarter of which are over 65.
We can't have the lifestyle we're currently enjoying with the wallet that we have today.
You'd have to sell some things.
Yes.
If the money runs out, those things have to become much more real.
I mean, those are the things that make this city identifiable.
Adele Sefriwi says that discussion should be off the table.
You sell those assets, they're gone forever, and the money will eventually dry up, and then you still have a structural mess on your hands.
But with the reserve fund already drained, the options are apparently dwindling.
So now the question is, what do you do when you have a city that's that underwater? Was it because they badly budgeted? Was it because people moved out? Was it because of overspending? There's so many different things that could have contributed to this. And now you're talking about selling parks? Yeah, that's how bad it could be. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends, including coming up our review of the latest Superman movie. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 4:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes during our Real Deal giveaway, where Kevin and I will review the newest Superman movie. That's right. Was it woke? Was it anti-American? Or was it just a superhero movie that too many people are reading into? We'll give you all the details, plus your chance to win those fantabulous prizes coming up at 4:45. Yet another reason to always keep KVI right there on your radio. And, of course, subscribe to our podcast whenever you get the chance. So, just today, President Trump was delivering remarks at the White House Faith Office luncheon. Now, President Trump has never been the most religious guy, but he seems to have an air of religiosity about him ever since the assassination attempt 1 year ago in Butler, Pennsylvania. Can we discuss how scary that was for a minute for many, many reasons? But number one, think about this. President Trump hadn't picked a VP yet. Imagine how many people would have said that the left took him out just to make sure he didn't get elected again. And then they never would have said, who's the inheritor to MAGA? There would have been a civil war in the country. There could have been a civil war in MAGA. I mean, that's the worst case scenario. Do you realize how close we were to the brink with all that? Do you really realize how close we were to the brink? I saw an image I had never seen before. I've seen the overheads. I've seen the video. I've seen the slow motion. I've seen the 3D analysis. Somebody did a sniper shot, which showed the angle that Crooks was looking at as he was looking down that barrel of that gun. And it showed President Trump's face in full view and where that bullet would have hit. And then it showed what it must have looked like when he turned his head to look at that graphic about illegal immigration that was up on that board at just the right moment. You realize we came inches away from probably civil war in this country? When Trump says God saved his life, I really believe it, and we don't even believe in the same God. I really, really do believe it. This is what President Trump said this morning.
But today we celebrate the core values that built this country: freedom, hard work, risk-taking, and above all, trust in Almighty God. You're very much into God in this room, and that's very nice. You're business leaders who believe strongly.
Exactly right. I mean, he went on and he gave some pretty powerful remarks on religion today.
From the earliest days of our republic, the steady compass of faith has guided the strong hands of American workers, builders, and entrepreneurs like really no other. Our country was founded by pilgrims and believers, and every generation since, Americans of faith have built our communities and forged new industries and enriched our country by millions and millions of people and ways. John D. Rockefeller, J.C. Penney, Charles Goodyear, Truett Cathy, and frankly, we have people I could name right in this room sitting here that their names are every bit as big as that. They were inspired by their love of God, and now the proud tradition continues with all of you. And this group reminds us, as a nation that prays is a nation that prospers.
Exactly right. Then he gets into the stuff about what happened a year ago.
And it's remarkable to think that it was only 1 year ago this week that my time on earth nearly ended. And if you look at that, God was with me, because that's something. In theory, I should not be with you today. Well, I believe that, and I believe it, that my life was saved by God to really make America great again. I really believe that. I think I have a son. He's a great shooter, like a championship shooter. Don and Eric was a great shooter, both of them. But they said that at that distance with that gun, you didn't have a chance. And we turned the head at the right time, didn't we? Huh? We turned the head at the right time. So, I don't know, some people say it was lucky, and some people say something else. I say something else. I think God helped us.
So, I've interviewed President Trump once, and that was in between his terms in office. And when I interviewed him, he was full-on old Trump. You know, the class, boisterous, fun, funny, exciting, charismatic. That's the guy he was. I never met him in person. And then came the RNC last year. I was real excited. It was my first RNC. It was my first convention of either of the big parties. And there we were broadcasting from the floor of the arena. And I remember that first night. It was a day after the assassination attempt. It started the day after the assassination. So let's see, the assassination attempt was on a Saturday. Sunday, we were setting up to broadcast. And then Monday, we saw Trump at night. And they did the big reveal with the patch on the ear. You remember all that? I remember. We were just feet away from him when he entered the arena. Just feet away from him. And it wasn't the same Trump we had seen before. His whole family was affected by this. Remember Don Jr. crying? I mean, I make a lot of jokes at Don Jr.'s expense. I really, really do. But that's not a guy you picture crying. Remember the members of the family tearing up? President Trump had an aura around him. No, I'm not saying like a holy aura or Jesus aura or something like that. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Something else. An air of humbleness. An air of thanksgiving. An air of being thankful that he was still alive, even not even believing he was still alive. And I remember how many people criticized that and were upset that he was still alive. And I thought, my God, you just don't understand the moment. Or you're just that evil. But yeah, for whatever reason, God saved Trump's life. I truly, truly believe that. I am a religious man. I truly, truly believe God saved Trump's life for whatever reason that is. Can you imagine what would have happened to the United States of America if that bullet had actually hit him? I don't even want to think about it. I don't even want to think about it. You know a guy named Brick Suit? Brick Suit, big Trump fan. He's a guy who always wears a suit that looks like a wall. And he was filming. And I had never seen his video footage before. He was behind the stage. And he hears the bullet shots, he sees Trump go down, and you hear people around him thinking Trump's dead. And then when they see Trump come up and that fist come up and him walk off stage, oh my God, he's alive, he's alive. It's really an incredible, powerful moment, even a year later. It really, really is, to see the hand of God in front of all of us at something that huge moment in Butler, Pennsylvania. A lot of us, our lives were forever changed. It was really something to behold and something to witness. And I'm glad to see that has remained with Trump through his presidency, that he still has that over him. Yes, he's still Trump. Yes, he's still funny. Yes, he's still charismatic. Yes, he's still all the things. Yes, he's still boisterous. Yes, he says things he shouldn't sometimes. But I like when I see that other side of Trump. It makes him a little bit more human rather than superhuman to me. In fact, speaking of superhuman, when we come back, my friends, Kevin and I are going to give our review of the Superman movie. Was it woke? Was it anti-American? How did James Gunn do? How did the cast do on their first outing with Superman? And your chance to win fantabulous prizes. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I'm going to start by saying this. Anybody who is reading any politics into the new Superman movie, either pro-America, either anti-America, whatever it is, take all the politics out of the movie because they just ain't there. You want to discuss if the movie's good or not? Of course, we can do that. But this is not a political movie. It is a Superman movie. Now, it's a James Gunn Superman movie. So that's a whole different world to get used to. This is not going to be for those of you who like Christopher Reeve's Superman. This is not going to be for those of you who like Brendan Ruth's Superman, which I don't think that many people actually did like that.
I was going to say, are there people out there who did?
Well, he wasn't the problem with that movie. There are a lot of problems with that movie, but he was not the issue with that movie. This is, for those of you that like Henry Cavill, you will really not like this movie because this one is so bright and happy and cheery and goofy and all that, all the complete opposite of the Snyderverse, which is dark and foreboding and Kryptonian technology. What I did really like about this, let me list all the things I like first. The cast, I think everybody was perfectly cast. I think a lot of them didn't need to be there. I don't know why Cat Grant's character is running around. Perry White didn't have anything to do. The Daily Planet is almost an afterthought in this movie.
They did incorporate, what's his name, Jimmy Olsen in there a little bit.
He was great.
They gave him, and perfect choice for the actor who played Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah, he was a great casting. I thought Lois Lane, played by Rachel Brosnahan,
She was fantastic.
She was great.
Yep,
She was great. I'd say top movie Lois Lane. I really would say that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just hard to beat the original first two Superman.
I never really liked Margot Kidder, but I know that's a me problem. That's a thing.
Yeah,
but
I mean, she played it so well, though.
She did. But I think Rachel Brosnahan is actually the best movie one. I still think Erica Durance is the best overall Lois Lane / TV show. She's the one from Smallville, but I'm a goof like that. You know why I think that? That's a whole different story.
This version of Lois was very, very similar to the Margot Kidder one. I sensed. Like, I felt like she was pretty close to that.
I think she was close to that. I think she
played it almost like her.
Yeah, I thought she was like the comic book one. I really thought she was the most like the comic book one. Perry White, great. David Cornsweet, the Superman. He was great. The one issue I had with him is his Clark Kent, you ruffle his hair and put on his glasses, but he's still using the same voice. He's still kind of Superman. And there wasn't enough Clark Kent in the movie, in my opinion.
Well, you never saw Clark Kent interact with anybody else, really, except for Lois Lane in this movie. So I guess he had an alter ego, maybe with the other people, but he never really, again, he barely had a scene with Jimmy Olsen. Perry White was, it was like, you didn't see Clark Kent much in the movie except with Lois Lane.
Right.
And at this point, they're, spoilers,
yeah,
they're already a thing. They're already a relationship.
Right. Now, that's something else I like, too. I am tired of seeing a baby in a rocket ship. I am tired of seeing Krypton explode. So I like that it opens up with, hey, this has been going on for a while now, and we're dropping you down into his universe.
They went the Spider-Man route, the latest Spider-Man movies, where we're not going to go into the origin story and that sort of thing. And I appreciate that as well.
Yeah, I like that. I think that Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor was great. I like the spin they did on Lex Luthor. I like all the stuff about that. What is hard for me is that this is James Gunn's Superman, and for me, James Gunn is hit or miss. I like some of his movies. I don't like some of his movies. I like this Superman universe, but it's going to take some getting used to. My wife, this was her favorite Superman. This thing has an amazing Rotten Tomatoes score. People love this movie. I mean, they really, really love it. For me, take the 1950s cheesiness of Superman, combine it with the 1990s world of the comic books, and dump it into the video game world where Superman is just flying around Metropolis fighting a bad guy on every corner. That's what it felt like to me. And if you want to know if I liked it or not, I still haven't decided. I actually need to give it another watch to decide because there's some things that really take a lot of getting used to. I think there was a lot of clever. I think there was a lot of brilliant. The things they did to some legacy characters, some I laughed at, some I didn't like that much. I'm not going to give anything away. I think I need another watch. But what I'm telling you clear as day, do not take your politics into the movie. You want to say, oh my God, it's about October 7th because a fence falls down? Shut up. Shut up. You're crazy. You're out of your minds. Okay, that's stupid.
Yeah, they threw in a bunch of things that are kind of an amalgamation of things that you could project whatever you want onto it, but that's just your own thing. I wouldn't say I liked it, but I would say go see it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a throwaway for me. It's a little flimsy. It's more like pop music. There's not a whole lot of substance there, but it was fine.
I think for me, right. I liked a lot of it, so that's why I really want to go see it again. And because I love the character so much, because I love the movie so much, I want to go see it again to see what I missed.
I don't think I could sit through it again.
Okay, well that's Kevin versus me. But stop with the woker man and all that kind of stuff. It's funny. There's a scene where there's an actual bot farm. And it seems like the people who are writing all the negative reviews might be part of that bot farm. Before I forget, your chance to go see Superman. We're giving away 4 Fandango passes to Superman. To caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win 4 tickets to Superman. Got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Congratulations to Tim in Renton. You are the proud winner of 4 Fandango passes to see Superman. Your next chance to win is coming up during our Good News giveaway at 5:45. Since it is the final hour free-for-all, got some text during the last hour, and I think I have to correct the record because I said something that some people took out of context. I want to make sure I got this right. When we were discussing religion and discussing Trump reacting to what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, I said as a throwaway, we may not believe in the same God, myself and the president. What I was referencing to that is, just to clear up the people who texted in and said there's some confusion regarding that, where Judaism and Christianity diverge is when it comes to Jesus. Before then, most things are almost exactly the same. We don't believe that Jesus is God's son. We believe that he is just a guy. Because Jesus is part of the deity family, I guess I'll say for lack of a better word, and I'm not trying to impugn anybody else's religion or anything else like that, that's what I was referencing. I apologize if there was some confusion over that. In fact, if you want to call and discuss any of this stuff, be my guest. You can give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I hope that clears everything up for everybody, but we'll open up the phone lines anyway in case any of you want to call and discuss. Switching gears over to the weekend, Turning Point USA had their annual Student Action Summit, and they keep bringing back Tucker Carlson. Now, Tucker Carlson has gone completely off the rails. I haven't given Tucker Carlson a lot of airtime on the show because the things he has been saying have been getting crazier and crazier. It's basically been all downhill since that interview in Russia with Putin, walking around talking about how great Russia is. Let's just remember that for a second. So it's been steadily downhill since then. Now, more recently, he's been on this whole anti-Israel kick. I don't want to say anti-Semitic kick. It's something else. It truly is just anti-Israel. But last week, he did an interview with the president of Iran, where he didn't push back on anything. He basically just let the president of Iran spew their garbage and their propaganda and just gave him a platform in order to do so. So then he comes to Turning Point USA, one of the most pro-MAGA organizations, one of the most pro-Trump organizations, one of the most pro-American organizations, and spews a lot of his insanity. Now, I love Turning Point USA. We have their contributors on the show all the time. We've had Charlie Kirk on the show. They've actually paid me to go speak to various college campuses about what's going on in the Middle East. So this whole thing, I understand you want to have differing points of view, but at some point, having a guy like Tucker Carlson on is just reflecting badly on the organization with the stuff that he's saying. This is a guy who was insulting, or he was criticizing, bombing Iran. Guys who have called to wipe out America. Guys who have killed hundreds of Americans over the last 40, 50 years. It's crazy to me that this is the guy they would bring on. Following this interview he did last week, and I understand last minute may be hard to get rid of people, but they bring him on the week after he says, yeah, well, you know, those Iranians, they got a point. America bad. That's the guy you want to bring on. But it seems like Tucker Carlson has really taken a jump off the deep end. Listen to this and tell me if this sounds like a Republican or sounds more like somebody on the other side.
Biggest house in New York. Like, what is that? Like, at some point, the basic economics really matter. And they matter because not that it's bad that rich people are getting richer, it's bad that everyone else is getting poorer. And it's especially bad the young people can't afford homes. Let me just put a very precise point on this. If you want a measure of how your economy is doing, I personally favor eliminating GDP as a measure. I don't even know what that is. It's clearly not relevant.
Okay, he goes down the rabbit hole and starts analyzing how he doesn't want to discuss domestic growth and all that, but he's basically bashing what Trump is trying to do to fix the economy. And it sounds a lot like, even though he said he's not, it sounds a lot like he's blaming the wealthy for taking the money from everybody else. And that's not how our economy works. You are not poor because somebody else is rich unless they have directly stolen your money. But because Jeff Bezos is rich doesn't make me poor. But for some reason, he went on for 3 minutes down this rabbit hole, whereas basically I couldn't tell the difference between him and AOC or Elizabeth Warren or anybody else. The weird thing about Tucker Carlson is he spent multiple speeches over the weekend coming out against everything the Trump administration is proud of.
That it's so important that, boys not playing girls' soccer teams, whatever. I agree. I hate the tranny stuff passionately. I think you should keep the boys off girls' soccer teams. But I don't know. It kind of feels like you're feeding me appetizers. At some point, I want to look around and see a better country. I want to see a country I recognize. I don't want to see people sleeping on the sidewalk. I don't see people ODing on drugs. I want to know where are those drugs coming from. Why can't you stop it? You've got the U.S. military. Don't you have SEAL Team 6? What are they doing today? And moreover, it's extremely obvious to anyone who watches that this guy had direct connections to...
Okay, hang on. We're going to stop before we get into the rest of that. So let's focus on this for a second. Tucker Carlson is discussing something that is mainly a local issue. What's going on in the streets, that's a local issue. There's only so much the feds can do. And the feds have done an amazing job of stopping drugs coming across the border. So once again, you're insulting President Trump's greatest accomplishment this term by far. You're also somehow criticizing these stopping boys from playing in girls' sports, saying it's not enough. Do you realize we just did a whole segment on the Department of Education? We just did a whole segment on this stuff. But that's not enough for you? It's just appetizers? You're saying Trump hasn't done enough yet? Well, I'm sorry, it's not up to your standards yet, Tucker. But I couldn't help but notice something. He won't say Trump by name. He won't talk about a lot of people in the administration by name. Tucker Carlson is friends with Donald Trump. He could call him right now and say, can you do more? Can you come on my show? All those kind of things. He was literally with him at multiple public appearances. So if you have an issue with Trump, why aren't you saying Trump's name? And I think Tucker Carlson can be held up as the greatest example of cowardice. Look, we know that President Trump, if you insult President Trump, if you speak out against President Trump, you may end up in the doghouse. If you do it respectfully, in this administration, you don't normally have that problem. But if you have an issue with the president, call him out by name. We do on this show. When we don't like something Trump does, we call it out on this show. Whether or not I'm going to get invited back to the White House, that's something we do because we call balls and strikes on the show. And I disagree with everything Tucker Carlson has said so far. He takes something that the right agrees with and then warps it into something to criticize Trump without mentioning Trump by name. You worried about losing access? You worried about him not taking your calls anymore? Then you're a coward. Either you stand by your principles, you stand by your beliefs, you stand by what you actually feel, and say it out loud, or you're a coward. I got more respect for AOC and the people on the left who are criticizing it and naming it, because at least you know how they feel. But Tucker seems to be playing this weird game where he's trying not to say President Trump. Well, then who are you criticizing? Who's in charge of the government? Who's the one who's attacking Iran? Who's the one who's eliminating their nuclear threat? Who's the one who's stopping the drugs at the border? Who exactly are you calling out right now? And you're saying the Trump administration hasn't done enough? You know what? I want them to do more too. But I don't criticize them for not doing enough. I say hopefully they'll get to Washington eventually. Then he kind of took it in a really weird direction. So then he started trying to blame Israel for everything. Somebody sent me this video. The quality's a little different because it was taken from a cell phone, not the main stage. Listen to this.
I also refer to common sense when I say that no man can serve two masters. It's not possible. I only have one wife for that reason. You say to your wife, I'm going to take another wife, but I'm going to love you just as much. Nothing's going to change. My wife's going to look at me like, no, it's one wife. Because you can only really pledge your loyalty to one person or one country. This is just a fact. And there's also a sense, and this is relevant to me, and I know you're speaking about Israel, but it's not just Israel, to be honest. I think it's a huge problem. I think anybody, by the way, who serves in a foreign military should lose his citizenship immediately. There are a lot of Americans who've served in the IDF. They should lose their citizenship. There's a lot of Americans who've served.
Okay, stop right there for a second. A lot of Americans who served in the IDF. You mean like my son who's going into the IDF this year? Think he should lose his citizenship, Tucker? He's doing that because he wants to protect his fellow Jews in Israel, where so many people around the world would not do that beforehand. But how about this? Congressman Brian Mast, you know that he served in the Israeli army. You know that he did that in an exchange program. You think he should lose his citizenship after he lost his legs and many other parts of his anatomy defending this country? You think he should be stripped of his citizenship? How many people in our military have done training programs with the Israeli army? It's a lot. I know a lot of people who have done it. You think all of them should be losing their citizenship? Israel is one of our allies. How about all the Israelis that move here to live in this country, but because they were required to serve in the country they came from, and there's lots of other countries that do the exact same thing that have mandatory service, you think they should not be able to be citizens here? It's one thing if you came from an adversary. It's one thing if you came from an adversarial country and you say, hey, we have problems with this, but an ally? What are you worried about exactly, Tucker? And you pretend like you know so much about these militaries, but you really, really don't. At the top of the list, I put Brian Mast, who I have met, who I have spoken to. And when I asked him, why did you go serve for Israel? Why did you go participate in that program? He said, and we could pull up the interview at KVI.com, he said that America has Israel as its aircraft carrier in the Middle East. They are our outpost of democracy. They are defending democracy. They are defending Western civilization, and that's why we should back them. And how many times have the Arab countries attacked America? And don't think it's because of Israel. It's because they hate America. They have said it themselves. Iran has said it. They call Israel the little Satan, but they call America the great Satan. That's who they really want to take down. And Israel is fighting a lot of these wars for us. Israel took out Hezbollah. Israel took out Hamas. Israel helped soften Iran before America came in and dropped in the knockout punch. Israel's still fighting the Houthi rebels. These are the fights of countries and terrorist groups that want to take out the United States of America. And now Tucker says it's like serving two masters? Do you really believe that? Are you questioning my patriotism, Tucker? It just shows he has no idea what the hell he is talking about. None whatsoever. And then there's the Epstein thing. So the Epstein stuff has veered into very, very odd territory over the weekend, especially because of the likes of Tucker Carlson. There's a lot of people saying, well, the reason they're covering it up is now the Jews. Now Mossad was working Jeffrey Epstein, okay? If you believe that, show me the proof. My frustration with the Epstein files not being released is release all the files, let all of us judge. This has been tragically mishandled by Pam Bondi. Tragically mishandled. She built it up and built it up and built it up and then gave those influencers a binder. There was nothing in the binder, and then built it up and built it up and built it up and then said there's nothing here. If everything was destroyed by the Biden administration's FBI, say so. If you have other files out there, release them. I understand that a lot of the video files are child pornography and you can't release those, but release everything else like you did with JFK, like you did with MLK, like you did with RFK. Take RFK Jr. RFK Jr. had theories about his father's death. And then when he saw the documents, he goes, well, I guess those theories were just theories. If you are not providing proof for any of this, other than Ehud Barak, a former Israeli prime minister, who most of the people in this audience have no idea who he is Israel's version of Bill Clinton. Let's just say I don't have a high opinion of this guy. Because he went to Epstein's Island a bunch of times, well, then we should indict Alan Dershowitz. And Alan Dershowitz was sued by one of the accusers, and he was able to exonerate himself because he said there's no proof. I was there, I was giving legal advice, but I participated in none of this insanity. None of it. Just because you're in the flight logs doesn't mean you did anything wrong. Is there a client list? Is there a list of people they did business with? Look, we've seen the flight logs. We've seen the list before. None of these things are secret, but doesn't tell you what they actually did. But if you just say, oh, I'm going to accuse the Jews with no proof whatsoever, that's conspiracy theory. Otherwise, show me your proof.
It's extremely obvious to anyone who watches that this guy had direct connections to a foreign government. Now, no one's allowed to say that that foreign government is Israel because we have been somehow cowed into thinking that that's naughty. There is nothing wrong with saying that. There is nothing hateful about saying that. There's nothing anti-Semitic about saying that. There's nothing even anti-Israel about saying that. I've spent my entire life pretty much in Washington, where I knew and loved a number of people, including one very close person who worked at CIA. That has never prohibited me from saying, I think the CIA has done some horrible things.
Okay, then provide the proof. If you think Israel has done these things, then provide the proof. Naftali Bennett, you may not know who he is. He was the Israeli prime minister before Netanyahu. He says, as a former Israeli prime minister with the Mossad, having reported directly to me, I say to you with 100% certainty, the accusation that Jeffrey Epstein somehow worked for Israel or the Mossad running a blackmail ring is categorically and totally false. Epstein's conduct, both in the criminal and the merely despicable, had nothing whatsoever to do with Mossad or the state of Israel. Epstein never worked for the Mossad. This accusation is a lie being peddled by prominent online personalities such as Tucker Carlson, pretending they know things they don't. They just make things up, say it with confidence, and these lies stick because it's Israel. There's a vicious wave of slander and lies against my country and my people, and we just won't take it anymore. If Tucker has proof of any of that, then release it. Otherwise, I think you're the one who hacked Elmo's Twitter account. Show me the actual proof. And for anybody else who has all these theories about Epstein, look, you know who's actually seen those files? The people at the Department of Justice, the people in the Trump administration. They're telling us there's nothing in them. Do you believe them? Do you not believe them? Then call them out and say you believe that Donald Trump is covering for a child sex ring operator. But you don't actually have the courage to say that. And you don't actually have the balls to say that. And you don't actually have the proof to say that. And you're worried about losing your access to the White House. I don't believe that at all. AOC literally said Trump is a racist. He should sue her, like he did with any of the other outlets that did. But she called him out by name and said, this is what I think is going on. Tucker Carlson throws these things out into the world with no proof whatsoever, and you hear the college kids cheering because it's just backing up their narratives that they're being fed by people online like Tucker Carlson. If there is proof to any of this, then we will look at it. But I haven't seen any of it. And this is the nonsense he keeps peddling. And that makes you a conspiracy theorist. There are conspiracies and there are conspiracy theorists. Look, there's a whole bunch of stuff that turned out to be true that we thought, but we said we need proof of it. Whole bunch of stuff from 2020 and beyond. And we need proof of it. Throwing this stuff out there without any proof to back it up whatsoever makes you a conspiracy theorist. You agree with me? You disagree with me? You give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss as the show continues. I warned you that Mamdani would be the new model for the left, and it's already happening. I'll tell you all about it when we come back, but first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast, right now on The Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, plus so much more. Yet another reason always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. So, a suspect has been identified in Sunday's deadly shooting spree in Lexington, Kentucky that left 2 women dead, 2 men wounded, and a Kentucky state trooper hospitalized. Law enforcement told LEX 18 that the suspect had been identified as Guy House, a convicted felon with a long criminal history. House was shot and killed by police at the scene. House, who has previously been charged with first-degree fleeing and invading police, resisting arrest, and illegal possession of a handgun in 2022, was not legally allowed to own a firearm. Authorities are now investigating how he obtained the weapon used in the attack. Pictures and videos found online of House show him wearing a Palestinian keffiyeh, which is regularly used to show support for Hamas, the terrorist organization. This guy apparently converted to Islam. Now, people say all the time, oh, they just want to kill Israel. No, my friends. Oh, they just want to kill Jews. No, my friends. They want to kill all of us. The 2 women who were killed have been identified as Beverly Gum, 72, and Christina Combs, 32. Gum is a mother of 8. One of her daughters, Star Rutherford, has been in the church's basement when the House came to the door and asked for one of Rutherford's sisters, who is mother to his 3 children, according to the Lexington Herald leader. When he was told she wasn't there, he allegedly responded, well, someone is going to have to die then, and opened fire. Gum ducked and avoided the first shot, but the second hit her in the chest, killing her. House then allegedly went outside, shot another member of the Rutherford sisters, Combs, and injured Gum's husband, a longtime pastor of the church, Jerry, as well as Combs' husband, Randy Combs. Rachel Barnes, one of the sisters, told the outlet late Sunday that the 2 men were in critical but stable condition. The violence began just before noon on Sunday when a Kentucky state trooper pulled House over in Terminal Drive near Bluegrass Airport. A license plate reader had flagged the vehicle. As the trooper approached, House opened fire, hitting him. Bystanders jumped in to help the injured officer, who is now in stable condition. House fled the scene and carjacked a vehicle nearby. No one was hurt during the carjacking. Using surveillance and intelligence tools, police tracked House to Richmond Road Baptist Church. There he opened fire on churchgoers. 3 Lexington police officers confronted House at the church and shot him. He died at the scene. The officers have been placed on administrative assignment, which is standard during use of force investigations. Senator Rand Paul posted on X, sad to hear about the tragic shootings. Kelly and I are praying for all the victims, the injured trooper, and their families. We are grateful for the brave first responders. Violence like this has no place. Governor Andy Beshear said, please pray for everyone affected in these senseless acts of violence. And let's give thanks for the swift response by the Lexington Police Department and Kentucky State Police. Notice how quickly the story disappeared from the headlines? This thing usually sticks around for a day or 2. Do you think it's because of the guy's headdress and scarf? We don't know if he was wearing it at the time, but his social media is filled with this garbage. And before they shut it down, people were able to find it right away. Now, scary thing to me is that a lot of people are embracing this ideology. Like, for example, how they're embracing Mamdani. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has said that all options are on the table in terms of attempting to win back Democratic control of the House in 2026, including redistricting. Speaking with Punchbowl News, Jeffries said in response to questions on whether the party would attempt a mid-decade redistricting in blue states like New York or Illinois in response to redistricting attempts in Texas and Ohio, he said all options are on the table when it comes to winning back control of the House. So does that include embracing this progressive ideology which supports terrorist organizations? Because it sure seems to be so. In Minneapolis, you have a Somalian guy who's running to be the mayor there. Do you remember that I told you that if Mamdani was successful, the model would be copied all over the country? Sounds like they got their own version of Mamdani out there in Minneapolis. Tell me if any of this sounds familiar.
Why aren't you doing more videos? As a state senator with a second full-time job and a kid on the way, I just haven't been able to find the time. I've also been fighting for you, passing things like tuition-free college for working-class families, rideshare protections for our Uber and Lyft drivers, and the legalization of fentanyl testing strips. But this summer, you're going to be seeing a lot more of me, because we deserve nice things in Minneapolis too. To make an affordable Minneapolis that works for everyone, we need a mayor that works as hard as you do. I'm ready to work hard too. 1. Build a Minneapolis that working people can afford to call home. 2. Protect our city from a hostile White House. And 3, diversify our city's public safety response. By increasing the minimum wage to $20 by 2028 and passing rent stabilization to stop price gouging and incentivizing new construction, we can protect workers. Protecting all of our communities from Donald Trump means not letting MPD interact with ICE, whether it's for an immigration raid or not. Our residents deserve a mayor that will stand up to Donald Trump and say no.
This is the same kind of nonsense Mamdani says. So he's literally talking about rent control, raising the minimum wage, defunding the police department. By the way, there's some scary audio of Mamdani that surfaced recently where he talks about how he doesn't want police to respond to domestic violent calls anymore. Now, while a lot of people dismiss this as something that may be about defunding the police, that's not what it's about, my friends. This is a guy who believes in Sharia law. What does Sharia law allow? Domestic violence. In fact, it encourages it. He doesn't want police responding to that kind of stuff anymore, which is horrifying and scary. Yet, this is the kind of stuff they're pushing, and this is the way they do it. Let's offer a whole bunch of people who don't understand politics a whole bunch of free stuff. Let's offer a whole bunch of free stuff to people who don't understand economics, and they'll vote for us because they want the free stuff. The analogy of the old grade school or high school election is still holding up. You remember when you went to grade school or you went to high school? There's some kid who might be on the more intellectual side, shall we say, to be nice, who wants to be class president. And that kid says, well, you know what? The teachers have been giving these really hard tests, so we need to go to the teachers and tell them that maybe they're not teaching as good, or maybe we need to work on something because the tests are just too hard and we're not doing so well, and maybe we need to create a new programming committee and maybe have a few more trips. And then there's a kid who goes, free pizza! We're going to have free pizza in the lunchroom, and we're going to have recess for every class, who always won the election without fail every time. Right? It was always the free pizza kid. That's literally what they're doing. They are following the model from when we were kids to get socialists elected. And I remember a lot of people like Fetterman and crew were saying, oh, this is a gift to the GOP. No, it's not. I said if Mamdani was successful, the model was going to be carried out and copied across the country. That is exactly what's happening. Now think about it on a scale for something like president. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, the man who was convicted of not wearing a mask in 2024 will be joining us to tell us how insane the story really is, plus give us some new details. Tim Hazelow joins us next. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. to prison for wearing a mask in the year of our Lord 2024 because he was targeted with malicious prosecution by a Democrat. Tim Hazelow is joining us now on the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Thanks so much for being with us today, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate the time to maybe get out a little bit of my side since the courts wouldn't let me do it.
All right, so let's back up a second for people who are just joining us. Basically what happened was we had the election of 2024 where President Trump won. Given all the allegations of voter fraud, et cetera, a lot of Republicans took it upon themselves to become voter observers. They signed up, they registered, they did everything the right way to become voter observers. Tim was one of them. Tim did this in Island County, Washington. He went to a site. They had some rule about wearing masks, even though there's no law, there's no mandates, there's no nothing. And then what happened was he was asked to leave, then ordered to leave by the police. He did so willingly. They cited him. And then that wasn't enough for the prosecutor, who hit him with felony charges, as now convict him of felony charges. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that pretty much covers it. Good synopsis there.
Okay, just making sure. All right. Now, let me clear up a few points because I just want to make sure that I got everything correct. Do you plan on appealing?
Yes. We plan on appealing. We feel like we weren't able to get our story out there. We feel like we weren't able to put a defense based on the rules and restrictions by the court, the prosecutor. And I mean, geez, if you look at this from the outside and you were in the court, you saw that this was one-sided all the way. And so, yeah, appeal.
Okay, so you are going to appeal. In the meantime, do you think that's going to stop you actually having to serve time? When is your sentencing?
So we don't have sentencing scheduled yet. That's something we're going to work on this week. The lawyers and the judge got to get their calendar together. But I honestly, we're going to put in what they call a stay of sentencing, which means that if approved, the sentencing won't happen or won't go into effect until after all the appeals processes are over. So that's what we're looking at doing right now.
Okay, now let me be clear about how you didn't get to tell your story. By my understanding, there were two key pieces of evidence that were not allowed at trial. Both would have exonerated you. One was a video from Como News showing other people in that facility were not wearing masks and were not asked to leave. The other piece of evidence were the multiple social media posts of this prosecutor showing that this was malicious prosecution because of how much he hates Republicans and anybody who doesn't wear masks. Is there anything else I'm leaving out?
Yeah, I mean, that's a couple of big ones, but one that might even be bigger than that is we wanted the jury to know what the auditor has authorization to do. We weren't even allowed to argue whether or not she had authorization to put in a mask mandate. So we said, well, we want the jury to at least have the whack that shows what the auditor has the authority to do, because if legislatively she's not given it, she can't just assume the authority if she's not given it legislatively. Well, she was never given the authority to to mandate a mask. The Banks, the prosecuting attorney, the guy we were just talking about, he objected, and the court upheld the objection. So the jury never even got to hear the whack. I think they read it once, so it was all by memory. And then the jury came back after they went to deliberation and specifically asked for that whack to help them make decisions, and they were once again denied that whack. The court would not let them see it. So what kind of a court do you go to where the rules be heard in court?
Okay, so let me make sure I got this right. You have a jury that wasn't allowed to be told the actual law regarding the thing they were passing judgment on. Why didn't they just say we can't rule on this? Instead, they say guilty?
I would agree. Why wouldn't they? So there's two things. So the whack in question that I'm talking about is what authority the auditor has to audit elections, to process these elections. And nowhere in there does it give her the authority that's due to mask mandate, right? The poisonous fruit theory. My lawyer asked me when I was on the stand, he said, Tim, have you ever unauthorized access to a polling place prior to being charged? And if I could say yes to that, or no to that in this case, because it would be a no, before I could say no to that, we were objected to, and the judge held an objection saying we can't talk about the unauthorized access to a polling place in that context.
So this sounds like a complete political trial, political theater. They wanted you convicted.
Oh, I believe so. And I don't know Judge Wilson from anybody else. I mean, he's a guy out of Snohomish. Maybe he's a great guy. Maybe he's not a great guy. I don't know. think about it this way: is it a hard rule? Is it a soft rule? In our case, it seems like they were just selectively enforcing the rules. Picture it this way, Ari. So yeah, you sign in, and on the rule sheet it says keep conversations to a minimum and don't move very much, right? Don't go from this spot to that spot to do the observing. But then when you go to the door where you walk in, it says absolute quiet. Don't talk inside this space. So what is it? Is it keep conversation to a minimum, or is it absolutely quiet? Right? You can't make a rule and then change it later on after people have signed and acknowledged the rules. And so it's a kangaroo system. She didn't have the authority to do it to begin with. That's still in litigation, which means, we sued the county prosecutor over this. How can he prosecute me when he's the defendant and I'm the complainant? So conflict of interest. I mean, it just goes on and on, Ari. I don't even know where to stop. It could go forever.
Let me ask you this one, just to play devil's advocate for a second, because this is what our friends in the news media like to paint this as. Were you offered a plea deal of any kind before this thing went to the felony level?
I was. They offered me a plea deal. First of all, I was charged with disorderly conduct, which got dismissed, by the way, because there was no disorderly conduct.
Mm-hmm.
But I was charged initially with disorderly conduct. When I refused to plead guilty to that because I knew there was none, Mr. Banks threatened me, and he said, look, if you don't plead guilty to disorderly conduct and trespassing, criminal trespassing, that I'm going to add to that, then we're going to charge you with this felony of unauthorized access. Well, I didn't trespass or have disorderly conduct. I was signed in. And so I said, no, I'm not going to plead guilty to a crime I didn't commit. And then sure as heck down the road, a week or two later, I get charged with this felony, and it's been downhill ever since. I mean, everybody I talk to outside of the court is like, wow. And even inside the court, just not officially, they're all like, wow, this is crazy. I can't believe it even got this far, let alone a conviction. So all I can do is keep on fighting. I look back on it, would have been easier to take the plea deal, but then it's just like anybody else rolling over and taking it, and nothing ever changes, and our society never improves.
Right.
We have to fight these things.
And who's to say that this guy who is so malicious, Greg Banks, this prosecutor, even if you had taken the plea deal, who's to say you would have gotten anything you wanted out of it? For all we know, he could have still targeted your security clearance because you have a job that requires it, or anything else, and I wouldn't have put any of that past him.
No, not at all. And that's the whole thing. And now, even if I win this on appeal, I need to move away from this county at a minimum, because I'm going to be looking over my shoulder 24/7 to see if this guy is going to charge me with something else. I mean, let's think about this. If I can get charged with a crime that never happened, anybody can get charged. The prosecutor can say, I don't like that guy. What is the Marxism saying? Give me the man and I'll find you the crime.
Yeah, that's what it seems like in this case. Tim Hazelow, keep up the good fight, my friend. We're all on your side, except for maybe Greg Banks and a couple of people out there in Allen County. But yeah, keep up the fight and keep the faith, my brother, all right?
Will do. And if you could direct people, search me on Facebook, search me on Give, Send, Go. We got a amount of defense again, so we're starting over. Already 20 grand into it, and now we're starting over from scratch, it seems like. So any help you guys can give me and any shares you can make, that'd be great.
Absolutely crazy stuff. Tim Hazelow, thank you so much for joining us today. We got a whole lot more to discuss. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to your good news giveaway, here's some good news headlines for you. I'm not sure if this one is good news, but Microsoft has announced that they're ending the blue screen of death. Hey, guys, I got it today, so I don't think that's working real well. But here's something else. They say it's just going to be a black screen now. How am I supposed to know the difference? At least with the blue screen of death, I know that something's going on and Control-Alt-Delete and reboot that sucker. I mean, do I care really what color it is? Just give me something that's different. Black is not going to help me in this.
I'm a Mac user, so I can't.
So you wouldn't even know.
It's the spinning beach ball on a Mac that's that you're like, oh no, and it just sits there and spins and spins and spins.
Yeah, same kind of problem though. Yeah, for me, the good news is ever since they came out with solid state hard drives, the worst thing that happens is you reboot the computer. Really, the worst thing that happens. I mean, unless you download some kind of crazy virus, but most of the Windows stuff is good at protecting that and the other stuff you can get. But what's crazy to me, absolutely crazy to me, is that people are still using the non-solid state drives. The ones with the disk? Those are the ones that go bad all the time.
You think that we have solid state drives in all these computers around here?
No. I know we don't. I don't know what we're running around here.
I
That's
don't think it's
story.
completely widespread yet.
Yeah.
It's still more expensive than than a regular hard drive.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
But like
so-
my Windows Surface, I've had that sucker for like over 10 years. And is it getting low on memory and a little slow? Sure, because I download whatever I downloaded over 10 years or whatever. It might be time for a new one. But it's not like it used to be with Dell. Oh, Dell was the worst. Every 3 years, boom, that sucker, as soon as that warranty was up, that thing would explode.
Hope they never try to sponsor your show.
Very good. But yeah, those things were just completely unreliable. Some of the worst computers in my life. Yes, now we got a real problem. There, I said it out loud.
Thanks.
Yes, you're welcome for that one. But I love my Surface. I love my Microsoft Surface. See, local company, we like them. Sure, we'll take their money. Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. Today, we are giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Daniel's Broiler has been a Seattle favorite since 1980. It features USDA prime steak and other specialties, including chicken and fresh seafood, as well as a selection of high-end spirits, wine, and cocktails. Daniel's Broiler is open now in Bellevue, downtown Seattle, Leschi, and South Lake Union with dine-in, takeout, and delivery. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout, delivery order, and more. We're also giving away a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. Learn how to design your retirement to support your quality of life. For 30-plus years from Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a local company working to help you grow deep financial roots so that future financial storms don't blow your life savings away. Visit madronafinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. Last but certainly not least, we are giving away 4 tickets to the Washington State Fair. It's time to do the puyallup at the Washington State Fair, celebrating its 125th anniversary. With food, fun, and entertainment, the Washington State Fair has it all. Get your tickets starting Wednesday at thefair.com, but you can win them early today. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. A copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, and 4 tickets to the Washington State Fair. Phone lines are open now. Give Kevin a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Got time for one good news story before we go to the end of the show today. According to Como News, a Seattle police officer will receive the prestigious Carnegie Medal for heroism after a daring rescue near Pioneer Square last October. You might remember Edward Grimmer, 34, saved a 57-year-old man experiencing a mental health crisis who had fallen 25 feet from a bridge ledge, landing perilously close to railroad tracks. This was on October 7, 2024. So what happened was, it was dark outside and Grimmer did not see precisely where the man landed. Regardless, he went across 2 sets of tracks before he spotted the man lying on the gravel inches from the middle of the tracks when the train approached. Grimmer went to the man, grabbed him by the fabric of his hooded sweatshirt, pulled him away from the tracks just as the train passed through. The train narrowly missed the man's legs and Grimmer's head by a couple of feet, as it took several minutes to pass. Grimmer stayed with the man until firefighters could safely cross the tracks and treat him and took him to a hospital. Absolutely incredible, and that happened right here in our very own Seattle. That's going to do it for us today, my friends, but fear not, we will be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.